Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Victoria and today I am going to be doing a really fun video. So if you are not aware, I am currently 100% obsessed with Taylor Swift's Midnights album. I have been a Taylor Swift fan since her Fearless album and I absolutely love her. She's one of my absolute all-time favorite artists. I used to have a giant poster of her above my bed framed and I still have it. It's just not above my bed anymore. And she recently in October released a new album called Midnights, and the album is based off of 13 sleepless nights that she's had. And there was this really fun trend going around on Instagram right after the album was released, which was 13 books that kept you up past midnight. And I thought it would be a really fun video. So I am going to be talking about 13 books that I stayed up past midnight to continue reading. So some of these books are ones that I read this year. Some of them are ones that I've read in previous years, but all of them are ones that I really love and that I had to know what happens when I kept reading, and they were nights that I did not go to sleep on time. This trend is a little bit different for me because I am a slight insomniac, and so I am usually up till past midnight, but the big one is if a book can keep me up past 3 a.m. So I usually tend to go to sleep around 2:30, 3 a.m. So if I'm staying up until 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, you know I have a lot on my mind and that I need to finish that book. So here are some books that I have that fit that criteria. So the first one is one that I read this year, is absolutely going to be on my top reads of this year, and that is Juniper Hill by Devney Perry. I love the entire Eden series and I was so focused on these books that I just absolutely needed to continue reading them, needed to know what happened. But Juniper Hill was like the one that I was so connected to. I love Knox and Memphis's story. I love the way that their relationship goes. I had the sweet it's the little moments in this book that really do it for me, not the like big grand gestures, but the small intimate little moments that make all of the difference in this book. It is about a single mother named Memphis who flees her previous life to come to this town in Montana, and she goes from being a like really rich heiress to being a single mother of an infant and working as a maid at the Eloise Inn in this town. And she ends up living in the guest house or above the garage of Knox and developing a relationship with him. And they both very much are against being in this relationship. At first, they're very much like, I don't want to be in a relationship. Memphis has a lot on her mind because her baby is literally brand new, and Knox has had some issues in his past that he doesn't want to get close to somebody, especially somebody who has a kid again, because he has been hurt in the past. But again, the little moments are everything in this book, and I absolutely loved it, and I needed to finish it, and I needed to. So it is amazing. Next one that I have is another really recent one, and that is Always Practice Safe Hex by Juliet Cross. This book is book 4. Is it book 4? Yeah. In the Stay a Spell series, and it is Gareth and Livy's book. And this series is a paranormal series. So the series follows the Savoy sisters, and so each sister gets her own book. And while I absolutely love the previous book in the series, and Don't Hex and Drive is probably maybe still my favorite, Always Practice Safe Hex is like way up there. They might be tied at this point, but Always Practice Safe Hex was one that I was so waiting for because the hero in it is a Grimm, and I was so excited to learn about what Grimms were and everything. So I was so invested, not just in the relationship of this one, but also in the actual like world building of the characters and the types of magical creatures that they are, because the heroine is a witch. All of the Savoy sisters are witches, but previously we've had a vampire, we've had two werewolf love interests. So this is our first Grimm. And in the previous books, we hadn't really known a whole lot about Grimms. And so I was really excited. And they're very mysterious and dark and just like, they have like this like lots of secrets, and I love that stuff. And so I was really, really excited to see more about Grimms and about Gareth in general, because him and Livy have a little bit of a, it's not quite enemies to lovers, but they don't get along at first. They definitely push each other's buttons at first, and I loved it. I loved it, and I just needed to know more. And the way that this went, this book had a little bit of a suspense element to it, where there was a person in it that you just knew was going to be a problem, and I loved seeing, learning about him and about the case that they could make against him as they went through. I loved seeing all of Livy's sisters, the rest of the Savoy sisters, and the setup for Henry's book, because Henry is also a Grimm, and giving little hints. Juliet Cross is amazing at giving little hints about the next one, so that you're like chomping at the bit to get those books. And I had to know, and this book is fantastic. Another one that I 100% know is going to be on my top books of the year this year is Manacled by SenLinYu. This is actually a Hermione fanfiction. I read this gigantic book. It's gotta be 800, maybe even more pages. I read it in 2 days. I was addicted to reading this book, and this one kept me up 2 nights in a row. This one was, I could not put it down. I read it nonstop, and it is heartbreaking and romantic at times, and also horrifying at times, and just this book left such a lasting impact on me, and while I was reading it, I could tell that it was going to. It has so many triggers in it, and it's one of the darkest books that I have ever read, and yet I was so invested in the story that as these dark things were coming along, I was both so scarred and so intrigued by them, and so like connected to these characters. The emotions that both Hermione and Draco and all of the other characters around, because a lot of this does take place during a war, you can feel the anguish that a lot of the characters are dealing with, and there's no right answer. Everything doesn't always just work out. And while this book does end on, I wouldn't necessarily call it a happily ever after, it does end on a positive-ish note. Like, the characters do get together at the end. They are together at the end. The heartbreaking and horrific things that they have to go through to get there, they stay with them. And it is so rough, but it is fantastic. It is amazing, and it is so much. And the Draco and Hermione that SenLinYu writes, and the way that she expands upon the characters that J.K. Rowling created, is ingenious, and it's done so well. The writing in it is fantastic. Next one that I have is a Sophie Lark book, and that is Stolen Heir. Stolen Heir is book 2 in the Brutal Birthright series. It is a captor-captive mafia romance. The hero is named Mikołaj, and he is the head of the Polish mafia, and he is very upset with the Irish mafia, and so in order to get back at them, he decides to kidnap the daughter of the head of the Irish mafia and hold her captive at his house. But she is a lot more than he had bargained for. He thought that she was just this like docile young girl who was not very involved in the family, and she is so much more. And the way that their relationship develops, it is reminiscent of Beauty and the Beast. It is a little bit of a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and that just, the change, the switch that Miko goes through of being, this is somebody who can get me what I want, versus this is somebody who I need to survive, is so subtle and yet all at once at the same time. He doesn't realize that he's going through this change until he's already through it. And so by the time he realizes, like, oh shit, I would do anything to protect this woman, it's already way past gone for him, and he's like, I need her. And I love the heroine in this book, and she's a dancer, and I loved the connection that she had to dance and how she was choreographing dances in his house while she was captured there, and it's so good. Number 4, I had to include a Sarah J. Maas book on this list. While I could include multiple, there's one specific one that I remember having a very specific sleepless night for, and that is A Court of Silver Flames. When A Court of Silver Flames came out, I started reading it at about 10 p.m. maybe on the night it came out. I had been busy all during the day, didn't get a chance to start it, and was like, I need to start it. And I started it at 10 p.m. After I'd already gotten into bed and everything, and I did not stop reading this book until about 5 o'clock the next morning. I read entirely through the night, and I didn't even notice. I had my light on. I never even put like my full pajamas on. I was just in like comfy clothes, chilling in my bed, and all of a sudden I had finished this book and looked at the time, and it was like the next morning, and I was so confused. But this book was fabulous. This is the follow-up after the A Court of Thorns and Roses series. It is Cassian and Nesta's story, and I have always connected to Nesta. She is so much more to me. She means a lot more to me as a person than Feyre or Elaine ever did. I always connected a lot more to Nesta. I tend to connect to the prickly heroines. And I was so excited for her book, and the pain and triumph that Nesta faces in this book it's fabulously done. The panic and anxiety and desperation is palpable on the page, and she goes through some really intense struggles and overcomes them so well, and I loved this book. Loved this book. The next one is The Takeover by TL Swan. This one is a single mother and a billionaire hero. The heroine is the CEO of her late husband's media company, and the hero is one of the owners of Miles Media, and he wants to buy the heroine's company, and the heroine is not having it. And then they meet each other on a Paris vacation and end up having like a vacation fling. But the heroine is like, this has to end when we are back in New York City. But then they get back and the hero is like, I'm not done with you. And so he continues to pursue the heroine. But the heroine has 3 sons who are of varying ages. One is quite young, and they go all the way up to her oldest is like a teenager. Or like an older teenager, he's like 17. The relationship that Tristan has, not just with Claire, I think her name's Claire, but also with her sons, is amazing. I love it, and Tristan is a still top tier hero for me. I absolutely adore him. The next one is Sweeper by Amy Dawes. This is the Secret Harris Brother book. This one is the last book in the Harris Brothers series. It is the one where you find out in replay, I believe, that Vaughn Harris, the father, has a child that he doesn't know about. He had a one-night stand with a American woman, and she never told him that a child resulted from that one-night stand. And he is a professional soccer player in America, and he finds out that his father, who he always thought was his father, isn't actually his father, and that Vaughn Harris might be his dad. And when he gets signed to Vaughn Harris's team in the United Kingdom, he flies over and lives there and has to work on a team with the man who might be his biological father and two of his half-brothers that have no idea who he is. And he has this secret that's like crazy inside of him, and he doesn't know what to do about it, and he doesn't know how to tell them, and it like builds up in his head so much over this book, and it is so good. And at the same time, he also ends up having a romance with his next door neighbor, who is the this quirky British girl who I love. And I love Xander. He's the hero. When I was reading this, I needed to stay up and find out how the Harris family reacted. I needed to. And I was like, how is he going to tell them? How are they going to react? What's it going to be? I was excited and I needed to know. Another one that I read this year is The Words by Jade. This one is a rock star romance. It is about a hero named Phoenix and a heroine named Lennon. The hero is a rock star, and back when they were in high school, they were sort of friends and were about to develop a relationship when Phoenix did something that Lennon considers unforgivable, and they haven't seen each other now in 5 years. Phoenix is a famous rock star, and Lennon is hired to be his sober coach and to keep him out of the bad press. And Lennon wants to use it as a way to get back at him for what he did when they were in high school. And this book is amazing. It's so good. It is second chance vibes. It is rock star. It is so emotional and angsty and not what I usually like, but I loved this book. It was so incredibly well done. It was my first Ashley Jade book, and I'm definitely gonna have to read more from her because I just loved the way it was written. So fantastic. And I was so invested in this book. I read it entirely in one day. The next one is the entire Madison Kate series by Tate James. I decided one day to read the first Madison Kate book, and I was like, found it on Hoopla, and I was like, I think I've heard about this. I should try it. I had no idea what it was about. I had no idea it was reverse harem. I literally nothing about it, and I had just heard about it from somebody, and I decided to click on it and read it, and I was beyond shook. I couldn't function for the next like multiple days until I had read the entire series. And then I read the entire Hades series after it, but Madison Kate specifically, I was like addicted to, because the Madison Kate series is a reverse harem series about this girl who, named Madison Kate, who has her life forever changed on a night called Riot Night. There's this horrible like riot that happens that she ends up actually getting blamed for, and she blames the fact that she gets blamed on it on these three guys who she met on Riot Night. And when she comes back to town after being away for a while, those three guys are living in her house and she has to live with them. And she hates them and she wants to get back at them, and she also is attracted to all of them, and there's also this stalker that's stalking her, and there's so much going on. There also is like gang wars going on. It's so much. It's so interesting and addictive. I would like play my audiobook even if I had like 30 seconds of silence. I was like, oh my god, I was like, oh, I can listen to a little bit more, and I would continue pressing it, and I had listened to it in like tiny little chunks. And then during the night I was like, oh my god, I have like so many hours where I have free to listen to this, and I was like, sleep is unimportant. I need to know what happens in Madison Kate. I was invested and I loved it. The next one is one that I read, I think I read it in 2020, and that is Long Shot by Kennedy Ryan. This book, I was unprepared going into it. I had no idea really what this was about. I had just been hearing a lot about Kennedy Ryan and how her writing was beautiful. This book is heavy. It is about a heroine who is in a very abusive relationship, and the hero who over multiple years has to try and help her, try and be friends with her. He loves her, but she is in this abusive relationship. He's trying to save her. She has a difficult time of getting out of the relationship. There's so much. It takes place over many years. It shows very blatant depictions of abuse and manipulative relationships. It is very heavy, and I was unprepared going into it. I had no idea. And so reading it I was so ingrained in this story. Like, I needed to know that everything was going to be okay. I needed to get to that HEA, and the thought of pausing or stopping in the middle when Iris, I think the heroine's name is Iris, when Iris was not safe yet, I was like, I need her to be at her HEA. Like, I can't stop when she's still going through this manipulation and abuse. I was like, I need to get to her HEA in order for everything to be okay. And I had to. The next one, if you've been on my channel for a while, you'll know, was Him by Sarina Bowen and Ella Kennedy. This is one of my all-time favorite books. The Him and Us duet is very important to me. It is, like I said, one of my all-time favorite books. I absolutely love them. Wes and Jamie, I would do anything for them, and if you heard them say a bad thing about them, I don't want to hear anything bad about the Him and Us duet. There is nothing you could say. It is everything. This is an MM hockey romance, friends to lovers, by awakening, about Wes and Jamie. They went to hockey camp together when they were younger, and they were like best friends, but then something sets them apart and they don't see each other a while until after college, and then they graduate college, and Wes is about to go into the NHL when he decides to go back to the hockey camp as a coach so that he can spend one last summer with Jamie and actually tell him that he has been in love with him forever. And it is adorable and amazing, and their relationship is just absolutely beautiful, and I will hear no bad things about this book, ever. The next one is Souls Unfractured by Tilly Cole. This is the third book in the Hades Hangman series, and this is the one that I was actually the most intrigued to read, and it's also actually the last one that I've read in this series. I've only read the first three. I really enjoyed book one. I didn't really love book two, and then I got to book three, and I read book three even though I didn't like book two because the hero in this one was very volatile. He was very overly traumatized, and I knew that his romance was going to be really interesting. And the hero is, I think his name is Flame, if I remember correctly, and he is part of the motorcycle club, and he has a lot of abuse in his past. He has a lot of trauma, and he has a lot of rage inside of him, and he's not the most sane. And the heroine is one of the sisters who escaped the cult that they grew up in, and she was incredibly damaged and traumatized by being in this cult. And she is afraid of everything that she doesn't know. But for some reason, she isn't afraid of Flame. She finds herself feeling safe with him, against everyone else's like belief. And their relationship is so interesting. And I love those kind of ones where it's so much trauma that they are able to find safety and like home within each other. It's one of those romances where there's so much trauma to work through, and yet the two characters, against like all odds, are able to find happiness within each other in their like own fucked up worlds. And I was so invested in their relationship, and I loved this book. Then we have the last one. We're on to the last one, the 13th one, and that is From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout. I was so invested in this book. I needed to know how it ended. If you have not heard of this book, I don't know where you've been, but this is a fantasy romance about a girl named Poppy who is what's called the Maiden, and she is told by the society that she lives in that she is very important and that she's like above everyone else. She's not allowed to be like looked at. She has to wear a veil. And she wants one night of like freedom basically, and she decides to sneak out, wear a mask, and go to this like club or like bar basically, and she ends up having a like tryst with this man, who then she wakes up the next morning and finds out that that man who she had this like midnight kiss with is actually her new bodyguard. And it's really good. I really love it. I still stand by loving this first and second book. I haven't actually read the third one, but the first and second one I both loved, and there is a lot of secrets in the book that you really want to be revealed, and I was so invested and needed to know what the secrets were, what they actually revealed, and so I stayed up so late reading this book. I was so sure I needed to, and I was so mad when I finished the book and the second one was not out yet. I was like, crap. I've waited and I waited and I was like, damn it. Because I finished it and I was like, I loved it, and I was like, crap. Now I have more questions. Some of my questions got answered, some of them didn't. Now I have more questions. I need book 2. So that's the bad part of reading a book in like one sitting or one day, where you're like, have to wait for like over a year until the next one comes out. But I still loved it, and it was still a great time, and I had to know. That was it. That is all of the books that I was going to mention in this video. They're all 13 books that I absolutely loved and just was addicted to reading, but that's going to be it. So I hope you like this video. Go stream Midnights if you haven't listened to it yet, and subscribe so you can see more content from me. And let me know down in the comments below what your favorite song on the Midnights album is, and what book kept you up past midnight. That's gonna be it, so I hope you have a great day.